I've got 6:30, Tuesday, February 22nd. I'm going to call to order general council meeting at this time. Roll call, please.
Alderman Motley. Here. Alderman Hudson.
Here.
Alderman Wilkins.
Present.
Alderman Stevens. Here. Alderman Rogers. Alderman Magley.
Yep.
All right, we have 5 and 6. Before I knew that Roger's probably going to be late. If everyone could stand and join me in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That moves us to item 4 of our agenda this evening, and that would be special presentations. We have an update on the bond issue from Centralia Schools, Mr. Stephen Chancellor. So,
Right. Is there a spot you definitely want me to stand, or?
no,
Okay.
whatever you.
Okay, so two things though. This is kind of like my kickoff stuff, so I'm gonna probably make a lot of mistakes, and if you were to listen to this little stump speech 3 weeks from now, it's gonna be a lot better, I promise you that. But I do want to take an opportunity just to tell you about 2 things that I've been really impressed with that I think it's important that you know about. One is how we've been handling snow in town. I personally have been very impressed. I feel like you've done your best to make our town accessible, and talking with some guys in the past, I don't want you to think when we cancel school it's that we lack the confidence in the city, right? I mean, as you know, we drive more road miles outside of the city, right? But I've been very impressed, and that's been fantastic. So whoever you need to pass that on to, please do. And the second would be is just how good it is to work with people like with Mike and Heather. You know, we get a really quick response time. You know, there was an issue where we had some electrical problems at the elementary school one day. And before I even got there, there was, the electric guys were there, Mike was there, they troubleshot the whole entire thing. So from a guy who rarely gets phone calls, hearing good things, I imagine you're in the same boat. I felt like it was important to pass those 2 things along to you. So
We'll make sure to take it.
yeah, please do, please do. It's been great. So wanted to talk to you about Proposition A that's going to be on the April 5th ballot, and that it's going to be a no tax rate increase proposal. And so there's kind of 3 areas I want to touch on with you. And number 1 is I kind of want to explain or demystify what a bond is. And I think oftentimes people misuse the words levy and bond, right? And so unlike the city, we only have one tax that we can impose, and that's a property tax. So we don't have the options of sales tax and other things that you have available to you. Proposition A is not about increasing that tax levy. It is about a bond issue. And for schools, bond is us asking permission to incur debt. But I would say the better way to think about it is we're asking for a line of credit. And because of the way school laws are set up, school districts have a maximum ceiling of bond debt that they can take on at one time. And that number for us is roughly $18 million. We currently have just under $5 million, and that'll be paid down in a few months. But because we've been able to take advantage of opportunistic refinancing with good, sound budget decisions and paying down debt early, that is why we can ask voters for approval for $10 million without increasing our tax rate. So we will maintain a tax rate of 0.89 cents to pay off that levy.
And that's, what did you say, 2 million or 10 million?
10.
10 million, okay.
$10 million.
Okay.
And so, I know you've heard this, I know I will hear it, is that there's no such thing as a no tax increase. And I would say to those people, you're somewhat accurate when you say that. The important thing to know is we're not increasing your tax rate. If your taxes go up, that's the county assessor. That's not the school district. So for those of you who live, well, I guess all of you live in Boone County, you probably got to notice that the assessed value for used cars was going to increase over this next assessment period, right? So it is theoretically possible that your tax bill will be higher, but it'll be the assessor's fault, not the school district's. So I think the second big question is what are we going to do with this money? And I think it's important to state that the last time Centralia School District had a successful bond pass was in 2007. And that's not wrong, and it's not necessarily, I don't necessarily mean that in a negative light. I think it just, we need to provide some context here. And that in 15 years of not paying attention, lack of maintenance, time, deferred maintenance, all of these things have caught up to us. And subsequently, our list is long. So over the past couple of years, we've tried to make really good decisions with the money that we already have. So you may have seen us work on some projects. We remodeled the bus barn. Some of you know we've been replacing a lot of HVAC units here recently. At Chance Elementary, we've had to replace all of the water pipes that ran underneath the school. Those were original 1951 water pipes that were carrying water to water fountains, toilets, things. They were completely eroded, gone. That's a project we just finished up. Projects that we are in the process of doing that you just can't see yet, we are adding air conditioning to the high school gym. So if you've ever been there for an event like graduation, you know that it gets thick quick, right? So, and it's going to help us for a lot of different events that we do there. We are going to start working on remodeling our wrestling room, because as you saw last weekend, those kids definitely have burned that. And then in the high school, our heating system is still the original boiler from late 1950s, early 1960s, and it's a terribly inefficient model. So heat is either on or off. We don't have the ability to control it. So while we are adding this air conditioning to the gym, we are also going to convert all of our existing units to gas, and we're going to abandon that old boiler system. That, as you can imagine, we're starting to struggle to get replacement parts with. Well, the hard part for me as I think about this bond project, and as I think about how long our list is that a lot of our issues are infrastructure related. So we are trying to be very cognizant of balancing projects that people will be able to see physically, unequivocally as do, with just sound infrastructure, things that we need to do to just maintain operations, right? So I'll give you an example of the projects we plan to do with this $10 million. If you've ever used the restrooms at the high school, you know those are in bad shape. I tell people kind of tongue-in-cheek, if you need tetanus, go use the bathrooms in the high school. We plan to address a lot of safety and security issues with doors that don't shut properly, aren't shutting tightly or locking properly, security cameras. I don't know if most people understand that in our high school, not every classroom has the ability to call the office if there's an emergency. We lack intercoms, phones, things that would, we have classrooms where, let's say a fight broke out or a student maybe had a seizure and we needed help. Our first go-to move is just start screaming and yelling and hoping that one of our neighbors hears and goes gets help. You know, that's, in today's age, can't be an acceptable practice for us. We need to continue our HVAC replacements. We had, prior to me arriving, no replacement schedule, no planned maintenance, no preventative maintenance schedules. And so, as you can imagine, all of our units were built in blocks. So, for example, every unit on top of the middle school were all bought in the exact same year, except for the units that run the 8th grade wing back in the back, and those were installed in 1982, and pretty confident those are residential units. So, so we're going to continue kind of a planned replacement cycle. We have struggled with CIS. I can speak for the 2.5 years I've been here. The struggle has been tough to deal with. So we have a building that's barely 15 years old. We already need to replace the boiler system in there. And we have an issue, the gym, when we built the gym, it was never built to a size that we could use for high school or middle school activities. So we have tile floor in that gym. It hurts kids' knees and ankles during PE. No one wants to rent it and use it for youth practice, so we're gonna put in a surface that mimics what the rec center has. That would at least make it attractive and appealing to youth groups, and we could start to use it to offset some of our schedules. So if we had a better surface, our school teams would utilize it. Boiler system is a pretty complicated system. It's made up of 2 units. One unit has not worked for at least 5 years. That's as far back in record as I can find. So we are constantly taxing the one unit that is there. We're throwing breakers. We're losing heat. We have to maintain a schedule. Someone constantly coming and checking that building during like nights like tonight. We'll have someone check to make sure that it didn't tick. And because I don't know if you remember, about 5-6 years ago, we had water lines freeze in the library and flood the library. We're going to replace the bleachers in the gym at the high school. Those are not only uncomfortable, starting to fall apart, but they are becoming a safety issue. They're digging into the floor on the lower floor when we pull those out, but the upper mezzanine, what I would say to you is don't ever watch someone pull that out. It's scary. It's not anchored to anything, and it requires a bunch of basically boys to get on the back side and manually pull this thing out as far as it can go. Considering how many events we use, because we only do have the one competition-sized gym, for as much as we use it, it's time to replace that. We need to make improvements at our elementary school playground. We're starting to see an uptick in students who are coming to us who have some kind of accessibility challenge or they're wheelchair bound. And if you were to drive by those playgrounds, they are not accessible right now to kids like that. If you look at the one that we call the preschool playground, we have a 10-foot slide, and the first step kind of comes to my knee. It's totally inappropriate. If you had a little kid, you would absolutely not allow them to get on this thing, but it's one of 4 pieces of equipment we have on that playground. We need to address that. Big ticket item is when we think about preparing kids for college, our science program, our people are fantastic, our facilities are inadequate. So as we look at what would it take to remodel our facilities to add safety features that should already be there but are not. So safety showers, eye wash stations, we don't have the physical space to remodel those classrooms without losing a ton of space. So our proposal is the awning that goes between the end of the math hallway, the English hallway that goes out to the ag building. We're proposing closing that in, putting 2 big science classrooms on one side, about 3 more classrooms on the other. We'll move all of our science people down there. Next to math, which makes sense, science and math go hand in hand. They need to collaborate more. Our special ed kids are kind of tucked away in little nooks and crannies. That'll free up space in the classrooms they're in now to have a more appropriate space for our special ed and hopefully some art expansion. And then, so that's kind of what $10 million will do. $10 million will not go as far as what people think it will. And you understand this as well as anyone, right? $1 million doesn't buy what it used to. We hope that, we feel confident we can achieve all those projects with the $10 million. We're hoping to have just a little bit left, and let me kind of explain to you what happens next. So, from my very first day of stepping foot in Centralia, I have had this mantra that if we don't know why we're saving money, we cannot know how to spend money. And we've lacked a real vision in this area of what's our future, what kind of plans do we have. We're at best it's helter-skelter right now. At best, we show up in a summer meeting and someone goes, so what do you want to do this year? And that's not how you effectively manage an organization, especially a school district. So while these projects that the $10 million will do will help plug the hole in the boat, we need to make sure that hole does not come back in the future. Did you give them the strategic plan? So in your package, you have a copy of our newly adopted strategic plan. That's hot off the press as of last Monday. That was an effort. We originally invited about 140 people, a little over 100 initially started participating. go into a little as we went on, but community members, students, parents, staff members, and basically my challenge to them was think about the future you want your kids to have, think about the experiences you want them to get while they're in Centralia schools. Let's identify what those experiences look like. Over the next 5 years, we will make decisions towards achieving those aspirations, right? Second big ticket item is we have now partnered with an architect firm for them to help design a master facility plan for us. That's something that we're really lacking in the sense that I don't want to just start building buildings and then I realize, well, if I would have moved it 75 feet to the west, we could have built this instead. We need to be thoughtful, we need to be purposeful, and we need to be thoughtful about what our grand plan looks like and then how do we work backwards, chunking that up into phases that are manageable, make sense, and don't overburden the community members and taxpayers. So between that partnership with the architecture firm, we also have a good financial partner who, last check, you worked with Stiefel out of St. Louis. I may be wrong about that.
No, we have this.
So they've been a good partner to the district, and from what I see, the city. That we are working to have these common sense plans that people can not just picture in their mind, they can actually see. And I think that's the key, is right now things are just too abstract. And it's just easy to look at things and say, you know, well, why don't we have this and why don't we have that? We need to be a lot more purposeful. And I'll give you an example of a vision we have is that we do believe that 4 campuses is one too many. We need to reduce down to 3 campuses. The numbers don't justify us having 4. And I'll be honest, if you were to look at the data over the last 7-8 years, our enrollment's actually going down. It's totally counterintuitive to what we see the housing market doing in Centralia right now. You would automatically assume that with our housing boom here lately, that's brought an influx of students into Centralia schools. That's not true. Now, it doesn't mean they're not bringing kids, they're just not school-aged kids, right? So hopefully one day we capture those kids. I think as long as we start to see some volatility in our neighbors, that could pan out well for us. But the reality is less than 3 years ago, we're down 40 students from that time, about 2020. So that's almost half a grade level for us. And I'll give you another comparison. We usually have about 100 to 105 kids per class. This year, we started off with 74 kids in kindergarten. So it's not just, we are losing them in our young ages, but we're losing them across the board. So that would be whatever money we have left over in conjunction with this master plan and the strategic plan. We would begin the work of what does a build out of the intermediate school look like, and what would the transition of elementary school kids out to that building look like. I'll tell you, as a superintendent, it makes no sense from a program standpoint to separate 2nd and 3rd grade. It creates more problems for us from an academic standpoint. We stand to gain a lot just from that fact alone. Here shortly, I was trying really hard to have this done today. I couldn't quite pull it off. We'll have a website that'll have all this information on it. It'll also include pictures of all the things that we've been working on this year and pictures of what we're proposing to fix with this upcoming bond issue. I think those pictures will tell a good tell, because from an infrastructure standpoint, you think about it, we intentionally keep everyone away from those things. We lock those doors so people don't see those things. So if we're gonna lock the door, then how do they understand that we're in such dire conditions, right? So I just kind of wrap up with saying that, you know, the list is long, but the best way to eat an elephant is a bite at a time, right? And that's our approach to this. And the reality is that we can't talk about the future. The future is now, our community's now, but our learning, our students are now. And that is the reason why we need to move forward with this. So I would appreciate, maybe not necessarily tonight, but in the future, kind of an official endorsement from the Board of Aldermen. Not necessarily, I'm not allowed to ask you to vote yes, right? But just support the idea of Proposition A being on the ballot. And I would be remiss if I said that I did not know that there was this idea of the city not doing something on a ballot because of what it could do to us, but I mean, it just was flooring in a good way. I was just so caught off guard when I heard that. I never would have asked for that, but I think that tells me that you see the condition we're in. That certainly tells me the level of support I have from you. And if no one else has said this to you, I do appreciate it. Thank you from the school district for that. So with that, I'll take any questions. Honestly, I was trying not to bring anything, but everything I just said, I brought you a copy. So anything you want to
recapping what you were talking about, the main points that people are going to be, first, I think you're doing a great job of visualizing, just making it visible for people, having a list of what work's going to be done, and those kind of things. I think in the past, that was very, the last times that this has been tried to be proposed,
Sure.
It hasn't been well done. It was almost like when we spent our allowance and we
Right.
can't show our work, what happened to it. So
Right.
I think those are critical things, and I think that, you know, we did have the use tax that was coming up. The use tax is gonna be Boone County, there's gonna be Boone County use tax on there for all Boone counties to have, as well as Columbia's gonna have it on their ballot. Athens gonna have it on their ballot, and we were thinking about having it on ours, but with the time that it's been since the city has had, I mean, the schools have had money invested in this program, it was tough. We were split, and we decided to go this way here to not, because people are gonna think of taxes. I think the key
Yeah.
thing that I heard was, a bond is a line of credit. We're
Yeah.
very low on the end of how much we can have borrowed. We're gonna be less than $5 million if we take on the 10. We'll still be 4 million, probably close to under the
Correct.
cap. 0.89 is the
It
rate,
is the tax rate, yes.
and it's not going up at all. Now, if you get assessed, that's a different thing. You got more dollars that are being assessed at 0.89, and that you all have a plan, a strategy of catching up, and you have a vision, a strategic plan for a long-term 3, 5 year, 10-year out, how you have to think.
Right. Absolutely, you know, and the other thing is, you know, the past is the past. You know, I can't control it, and honestly, none of us here can change it. And it really, it's irrelevant at this point, is that the past shouldn't stop us from making good decisions today. And we just need to start making good decisions today. And, you know, if we don't have a roadmap, and if we don't know what our destination is, we'll never know if we're taking the right route. We will never know if we're making it in good time. We lack all the information we need to make good decisions. So our destination, truthfully, may change. You know, that plan, our strategic plan, is not a promise to achieve every single one of those, but it's a promise to give a good faith effort to work towards those things. And as our needs change, we'll adapt to those. But if we don't start with a plan, we'll never know if we're getting there or not. And I think that would be one of the things I would like to leave with people, is that, you know, even a bad methodology is better than no methodology. So we're anxious to get to work and do a lot of things. We're going to face challenges in supply chains and finding people to be available. And as you're well aware, things like prevailing wage always throw a monkey wrench into things, but it's the fight we're fighting. So.
We appreciate, you know, I mean, if there's any questions you're more looking to ask, I mean, we appreciate our school system, but we want to be close partners with our schools, because that's an investment, that's our town. And so I think that with that question, we absolutely 110% support the schools. And I think the people of Centralia always have, really well, supported any time the school needed money, they've gotten it typically. That hasn't happened as of late, but that doesn't mean that's the trend of the thinking of people of Centralia. So I think that what you're putting together and having this available online, and as much as you can get it maybe in the paper a couple of times of what the bullet points are, what you're trying to get done with this money, and we can, you know, I mean, I as a taxpayer, as a citizen, absolutely believe in the schools. I've got a bunch of grandchildren now, and so bottom line is, you know, I'm sure we'll talk amongst ourselves and try to do what we can legally do to help based upon our personal.
Just communicate, because I could tell you, when the last one hit, I had no clue it was even gonna be on there until I got my sample ballot.
Right.
And I had 3 kids in the schools at the time, so.
Yeah, see, and as of today, I think I have, like, what I just tell you, 8 or 9 different events that I'm scheduled to be at and talk, and that's just me talking, right? We'll still have other campaigns and try to raise awareness. As you all know, there's such thing as starting too early, but there's such thing as waiting too late, and there's that balance, and so I think for us just to kind of take a slow, like a methodical approach to things, not try to overwhelm people the day before. If I need the day before to sell it, then it wasn't going to happen, right? And I really believe that it's not my job to change no votes to yes. Think about those are probably ideological, and there's nothing I'm ever going to do about those things. I just need to make sure that the yes voters have the information and it makes it appealing enough for them to come on that Tuesday and express their opinion. So that's my approach. Is just I hope that what we say and do resonates with people, and that they see the need and they want to be supportive. So.
I have a question about the wrestling room,
Sure.
which I'm super excited about because I had a wrestler in high school, but he's in college now. Anyways,
Right.
are you gonna make it big enough for there to be places for girls and the boys? Because I know right now the issue is that one horrid bathroom in there.
Right.
Is that a plan? Because
Yeah, so, good question. I'll be honest with you, it's kind of a two-phase plan. One is we're gonna remodel the existing structure. There's about a third of that building that's dedicated to our technology group that we consult with or contract with. We're tearing down that, we're gonna consume that whole building. We are gonna make our best effort to make those separate spaces. But we still view that structure as short term.
okay.
So, while some may argue we're throwing money at something that we may demolish in the near future, yes. Because I can't continue to defend why we're not doing anything about it, right? Not only do we have boys and girls that are mixing, going to the bathroom, changing the same place, but when our kids do well, they need to see us acknowledge that.
I agree.
And the reality is we don't do a good enough job acknowledging all of our kids, right? And so it's not just a wrestling problem, it's a band, it's a choir, it's an ag, it's art, it's everything. Like, we've got to provide, if we're going to have high expectations for kids to perform, we need to keep up our end of the deal, provide the right facilities, provide adequate space and materials for them to meet those expectations. So,
Thank you.
absolutely.
The question I have is, do you have a budget and you have a list of to-dos? That wrestling room, what kind of dollars are you talking about probably have to do what you think in the first phase?
My guess is we're gonna put somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $65,000 into that. So we have kind of a informal plan.
Understood, just, I wondered what it was.
There was a group at one point going around getting donations and things. Is that still a possibility?
Yeah, I don't know to what degree they're still willing to help. And we made good progress, and then the COVID thing, and that's the only time I'm gonna make an excuse that stopped this, right? That's the only time it stopped this. So I hope they had a plan. They had already worked out some like kind of donated labor approach. And I've talked to those people. We're just trying to update estimates and get a better understanding of what that looks like.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, thank you for your time and questions.
Absolutely.
For Mr. Chancellor.
I don't mean to be rude. I'm going to scoot out and go to our senior night over at the high school. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for
Thank
you and all your staff and folks who are doing representing Centralia. I hear a lot of good things. I think
Good.
about this.
Good. Good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that moves us to item 5, comments from the citizens. At this time, I would take and open the floor for any comments from citizens. I had no emails from you. Anybody else? I didn't. With no one seeming to have comments, we'll close comments from citizens and move to the consent agenda.
Mayor, can we move the appointment up?
We can. Yes, make them up. You want
Oh, okay.
No,
I assumed that was.
no, what you got?
I know, it's
Good, I know it was good thinking.
I was trying to-
You're trying to be considerate, I get it. No problem. So we won't do that.
Steve, you wanna be a dispatcher? They thought you were a dispatcher.
Oh, sure, I'll dispatch. What do you want to dispatch?
Hold on for a second.
So that moves- We'll stay at 6 with the consent agenda. This time I would have you guys review the reports that are listed, meeting minutes from A through G, all with the investment board report, board of alderman meeting, public works and utilities meeting, general government, public safety meeting, treasury report, activity reports, collector report, and investment report.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as published.
Second.
I have a first and a second to approve the consent agenda as published. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. That moves us to accounts payable over $1,250. I would entertain a motion, if you have time to look it over, to approve the $1,564,398.54. Nope.
No, you better flip the
I
page.
gotta flip the page, that's what I said, we
Yeah.
got added. So, that would move us to, a grand total of $1,884,000, $1,884,550.31.
What's it CNS companies?
They're part of the wastewater treatment project.
When is that their final payment?
For CNS.
Yes.
Oh, I believe it is, yeah.
Move to accept the accounts payable over $1,250 and a grand total of $1,884,550.31.
Second?
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Accounts payable is approved. That moves us to the action agenda. A of legal, number 8, changes in sewer connection fees. Entertain a motion for the reading. Bill number
2434.
2434.
Move the bill number 2434 be given its first reading by title only.
Second?
I have a first and a second for the first reading, title only. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Travis, can you read that, please?
An ordinance amending chapter 26-134 fee, state sewer service connection fee, Missouri Water Pollution Control Program.
Move the bill number 2434 be given its second reading by title only.
Second?
I have a first and second for the second reading of bill number 2434. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
An ordinance amending chapter 26-134 fee, state water sewer service connection fee, Missouri Water Pollution Control Program.
Move that bill number 2434 be adopted by roll call vote.
Second?
I have a first and second for 2434 to be adopted by roll call vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Roll call vote, please, Tara.
Alderman Motley? Yes. Alderman Hudson?
4.
Alderman Wilkins?
4.
Alderman Stevens?
Yes.
Alderman Magley?
Yeah.
Okay, it passes. 2434, ordinance number
3115.
315. Old business is what we're to now. Number 9 will be ARPA funding update.
Do you guys have any questions about the ARPA funding? They did finally come out with a final rule, the Department of Treasury did, on how they can expend the money. One of the biggest additions or changes from the interim rule to the final rule was the ability for municipal governments to claim up to $10 million of lost general revenue without having to actually produce any formula proving that they lost $10 million. So many communities within Missouri and throughout the United States have the option to literally claim the entirety of the ARPA funding that they would be receiving and dedicating it towards general government use. There's some benefits legally for doing that. I could go into that in closed session, just because it would probably be a closed session discussion, but there's a lot of benefits, I think, to cities moving towards claiming the general lost revenue provision. And if you do decide to go down that path, there's a resolution that you actually have to pass and declare that you intend to take up to $10 million. And I know you're not receiving up to $10 million, but you claim it in the form of a resolution. You do have to have a written resolution declaring it. Missouri didn't have one yet, so I literally took a look at the state of Minnesota, which had had one produced since the final rule, and tweaked it for the state of Missouri. So I believe Heather has it. So if you guys decide to move forward with it, you can declare the general revenue provision as soon as April the 1st. So this would be something you would consider during your April meeting.
Question I have is,
Yeah.
do you think we should add, do we want to add a closed session to review this deeper, or do we feel there's a need for that?
My only thing about it is I want to make sure we're public about where we're spending some of this money.
Yes, I'm
no.
curious.
No, I
No,
would,
let me say, it has to go into a restricted account, so it's not like the
it's
city.
still an audited
Yeah,
account.
it's still in a separate restricted account, it's just that instead of declaring it project by project, and again, there are reasons, part of which actually your superintendent hit on, not having to declare these project by project. It sits in a restricted account, it has to be expended by 2026, like all of the funds out of that account have to be expended, and you still have to keep track of the general government or projects that you use out of that account. So there would be a separate line item, I'm not sure how Heather or Tara would track it for you, that would show, here's what's in it, and here's what we've taken out. You still have to be able to produce an auditable trail of how it's expended.
And I just want us to be public about it though, too.
Oh, I have no problem, we should be. I mean, speak something we're,
I think that, what our preference would be, especially since it's a specific account, then, would be that we have a vote of the Board of Aldermen, even if it's just a motion, not even a resolution or an ordinance, but we could do it by motion, right? For a project that we're gonna
Exactly.
spend, we could give a report on how much money we have, and then we could say
Take it out.
we wanna use it for X amount of dollars for this project, so.
Yeah. That was my only concern, I
Absolutely.
think, when
That's
I
good
first
point.
heard about it was, well, what about the visibility? I want
Right.
the visibility.
Yeah,
You
we
still,
wanna be-
and you still have to show to the state and the federal government that by 2026, you've expended all of those
well,
funds.
and I think, and his point is to the public.
It's
the
more,
city-
it's more to the
Yeah.
public, because
The
we've
local
talked
public.
about these projects, we've had
Absolutely.
people in here and had meetings about some of the projects. So
Sure.
we just want to make sure we're communicating what we're doing.
We want to always do that too. It's the taxpayers' money, and it's, even though we're claiming 10 million and getting that percentage, it's still tax dollars, so it's going to make that money. It's government money, it's our money.
And
It's a good
hopefully
point.
this will make the process faster. I can say that by doing this, you will have the ability to access the funds quicker when you want to do projects. There are certain other regulations, requirements, that if you do it project by project, it makes it more cumbersome and it takes more time. So this way you'll have ease of access of it. And like I said, I absolutely agree, you
So-
gotta have transparency. You guys can set that up however you would like. Like if you wanna give a monthly report that shows what you're doing and how you're expending it, I would encourage the board to pursue that.
And I think expenditures that come out of it should be done through a motion process, if that makes sense. That way it's done here with all of us present, as well as the media, goes in the guard, as well, and that gets published to local people, and we can publish to our website as well.
Yeah, a very simple one page and a once a
Mhm.
month packet listing where we've spent the money and
Mhm.
keeping the total. I mean, think of the sheet that you have right now with the list of projects, just,
Right.
Mhm.
could be the same thing.
Sure.
Right.
It's just so
Good
we can get
point.
it out there.
Well,
That was my only concern about
I
Absolutely.
think that's a great idea.
Yep. Good. Anything else on that? We good? That moves us to new business. Any new business? Okey-doke. That moves us to me, the mayor. A, appointments. Appoint a full-time dispatcher to replace the open position of John Whitford. This appointment is contingent on the successful completion of required pre-employment testing. Who is the person?
Oh, that's the one I emailed you about, Darren Dubes.
There, oh yeah, got it, it's there.
Did you have any?
I did, I actually say it, I don't remember. I don't know some of the stuff, but yes. He's been, he looks like quite an experience, I mean,
Right, maybe not specifically dispatching,
To
but
that,
definitely
but-
with the computers. Brenda was impressed with his knowledge of computers and technology, and she said everything is, so technological these days that it's very important to have somebody that understands those kind of things. And she was impressed with him. moving forward. And also his availability fits really well. He could do, weekends or overnights or swing shifts, those kind of things. He
He's
already has
flexible.
experience with that, he's flexible.
Well, then, I would entertain a motion to, appointment of Darren Dukes to the replacement of John Whiteford.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So, after his pre-employment testing, he'll be available to join us. That moves us to number 11, Administrator Monthly Report.
My report's in the packet. I was going back through my calendar, and we did quite a bit during the month. I always feel like January, February, March, I just say I worked on the budget, but sometimes I literally close my door, just work on the budget all day long. So that's what I do a lot. So, but if you have any questions about anything, please let me know.
Questions? All right, that moves to 12, our city attorney. Anything for us to?
I have a question, and this may be something that Heather's monitoring, but are you guys keeping track of the newly released ARPA money that is coming through the state of Missouri that will be funneling through like Department of Economic Development that will be available in the form of grants? Is anybody for the city watching that? Are you
Yes.
kind of keeping that?
Yeah, there was some stormwater grants that I wanted to look at, and then once I had more information, bring it to the board. I'm not very familiar with them yet, but, yes.
Looks like more
But I am
money's
aware
coming
that they
through.
are available.
There's more funds coming through.
So like for instance, if you had a community downtown revitalization project, if your law enforcement wants access to upgraded radios or equipment, fire department dispatch, there will be, so I participate in the DED call cycles, which is what I'm saying. Maybe I should start funneling these to Heather too, to let you know, because there are going to be millions and millions of dollars of money opened up. As of April 1st, DED and some of these funding agencies are wanting to see the projects that your community are wanting to go for. They're looking for a combined, unified message of projects that are considered strategic, priority, and they call them generational changes. So they're looking for projects that are garnering big changes within your community, so big ticket items. Some of these pots of money, and there are 8 different pots right now that the state has divided these up into. Some of them are first come, first served. The largest one, which is called Community Redevelopment Investment Grants, it's $250 million worth of funding, does come with the requirement that there's a 50% match. But I just want to make sure that Centralia is thinking about that, or that you have somebody in the city, whether it's Heather or Tara, or whether it's me and Heather kind of combined tag teaming this, that you guys start thinking, is there a project in the city of Centralia that's not necessarily water and wastewater, because there are specific pools for that, but something else that your community might want? Do you want to start?
Like a new pool
Yes.
station.
Yes, and
No. That's what I was going to ask. Would that fit into it? We were talking about, we've got this lot down here, and we're talking about wanting to combine public safety.
It's possible, yes, and so I just
Yeah.
want
When
you
you
guys.
said that, that's what I got to
Yeah.
thinking.
Yes.
That's where my
Well,
mind
I
was.
looked at her, but I looked at him.
But
Not
I
saying a
mean,
word.
You're doing good, man.
Yeah.
but you need to start thinking now, because there's gonna be a very short time turnaround,
Well,
and they're really looking for, I won't say shovel ready, but I mean, having a conversation, with the landowner, maybe even looking at a possible, preliminary.
We own it.
Yeah, we own it.
Well,
ours is pretty clean. So the point is, we did the engineering,
Okay.
and they didn't have to fool with it in the grant process. That always gives you a
Go get the shovel
right now.
So-
And then seeking letters of support, like letters of support from your school district in this opinion. Obviously, your fire and your police department are going to support this. If there are any other organizations that are in your community that would support this, I'm just wanting to make sure you guys have this on your radar, because as of July 1st, these grants have to be submitted, and DED and these other agencies are wanting kind of pre-notifications that these applications may be coming. So it's horribly, I've been spending a lot of time with this just because there's so much money out there that I would hate for anybody to miss out on an opportunity. I literally think there is money out there for almost any project that a city has been thinking about.
Well, maybe what we could propose is this. Can you guys have a drumbeat call maybe once a week, just to check in with one another, what you're doing and what you're doing? and
Are
you're
you
working
on the
together?
DED Friday calls?
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna forward that to you, because you can register, but there are
That'd be
Friday
great.
calls that are once a month, where they're literally, the program directors and administrators for all of these grants get on calls, and there are about 600 of us approximately that are, you just listen and you can't ask questions with that many people. But every Friday, and Governor Parsons has set this up to make sure that everybody has access to how these grant funds can be applied for, obtained, what they're looking for, kind of like your point about transparency. It has been a very transparent process so far, like this is what we're looking for, this is, you know, and tapping into the Mid-Missouri Planning Commission, Regional Planning Commission potentially earlier. A lot of places, because the regional planning commissions are kind of getting overburdened right now with everything, are looking to hire private grant writers, just because, hey, it's a one-off private grant and we need to make sure that we get this submitted. So maybe something that the city may not necessarily understand have budgeted for, but you could pull that out of potentially of those funds that you already have set aside for ARPA, is to help you then write grants to either help your police department and public safety out and get something going.
Not
So-
posted service.
Substation.
Substation, that's the main,
So yeah, that's my update, because it's huge, like it's, and there's a lot of, like,
They added
some of us, well, some of them
horsepower to
also
it.
are looking, can we do this? So, you know, you guys have a question, maybe legally I need to look, can we do this? This is something that's within, you know, the power of government, so to speak, to even ask for through a grant, which you guys have a lot of leeway, but, you know. Anything?
Great.
No, I would be
How
really
long,
great.
how long are those meetings?
It depends, the last one was about an hour and a half.
Well, I know them a long time, I was on one.
So I would say that they, I mean, and there's a lot of information, and I mean, they really do try to pack in not just frivolous, I mean, sometimes you do these calls, right? They really do try to give you the nuts and bolts and walking through each of the programs and making sure they're covering it so that you have the right information to set you up for success when you apply. I would say plan for an hour and a half to 2 hours.
All right, good, good
We're
feedback.
on that.
Nice to have you here tonight. It seems like it's been a long time since we've all been together, that's the whole group. Donnie missed it, so.
You say generational, it just made me think of how they want to do what Mr. Chancellor was talking about with CIS and expanding on that.
Well, I mean, the school district could have, I mean, there are some funds that your school district can have access to, but like literally when they're looking at, they want you to bring game-changing grants. Grants that are going to benefit not just you and your kids, but your grandkids. They want that, I mean, they've called them transformational, generational, significant grants. They want your biggest and best ideas. Don't think that it's pie in the sky. You know, bring something that will really be transformational for your community.
When you think of emergency preparedness just in general, right, catastrophes, tornadoes, whatever it may be, let alone COVID and those kind of quarantine, that kind of thing, public safety being together is really powerful,
Yeah.
right, in one area. one place.
They can, there's a section of $20 million set aside for it. Hey,
Good, okay, very nice,
you know,
good
you're first
information.
come, first served vote, so.
That moves us to, anything else, folks? I mean, I don't want anybody else. You good?
No, she answered, thanks though.
Got it, okay. Moves us to 13, the city clerk. Anything for us? Okay. She's, actually, I'll bring up the fact that she's now officed, Marilyn has moved into her spot, and then she's moved back into the mayor's office, so I guess the one where Mike used to be, after he got out of the
Out of the
computer-
closet.
the computer closet.
Out of the closet.
No, you know, thank God his heart didn't blow out with his pacemaker, and he was, you ran on electronics, yeah, I sit in the room with him all that long. And he had, that was really, honest truth. Anyway, that being said, so that move's been made, it's working out well. I
We,
just, nod my head, stay on the way.
Here, I
Uh,
don't know if you have any staff that we would announce that.
yeah,
New staff, yes, Marilyn Dick was hired on as our finance clerk. She started on the 9th. She's doing a really good job. And then we hired Beth Cable to fill the empty assistant city clerk position, and she'll be starting on the 1st.
What is best position in?
The assistant city clerk one.
Thank you.
good, thanks for the update. 14, setting up the next Board of Alderman meeting to March 28th, 2022 at 6:30 PM. Do we want to talk about having the other one on the 7th?
We already did that last meeting.
We did that
voted
one already,
on
so
it.
we're just doing this one for this one here, got it. So I would entertain a motion for us moving that to the last Monday before the end of the year for us.
So moved.
Second.
A first and a second to move the meeting from the 21st to the 28th of March at 6:30. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved, it's passed. As may arise.
I sent Heather an email today and I told the gentleman that I would bring it up in the meeting tonight. I got a call today from a guy on South Central Street. He wants to know if we can make people stop parking on this street because there's been 3 accidents they're looking into it. There's been 3 accidents, cars running into each other on the side of the road, he said. There's also broke down cars on this cul-de-sac, and, he just wants something done. So, I emailed David and Heather today, and the chief's been in the loop as well, so if anybody gets a phone call about it, we are working on it.
Thanks, good to know that was.
In his voicemail to me, he called me an Alderman.
Oh. I think he's a customer of ours, so I was pretty familiar with him already.
I got a voicemail. Okay, good. That moves us to 16 to adjourn. I entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
So anyway, I have a first and a second to adjourn. All in favor? All opposed? It's adjourned. Thank you for your time, folks.